Welcome to Coach Thomason's class, room 119. Whether you're a government, economic, sociology, or U.S. history student, all are welcome here. The purpose of this video, whether it's a train wreck or whether it bores you to tears, hey, if it bores you to tears, at least we know that you're going to sleep tonight and you're not going to be sleepy in my class the next morning. So, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to get you ready for government. I'm trying to get you ready for what we're going to talk about in government. And maybe a quiz, maybe of the pop of nature. You know, you never know. So, these are the basic fundamental parts that we need to talk about. Always revisit these if you need to. Always ask me questions. Always be ready to discuss in class. That's the way this rolls. All right?
Oh yeah!
A world without a government. Where would that fit in? What do you think? What do you think this country would be like without the government entity? Think about it for a while. I'll show you what I think.
I want to dance with somebody.
Hi! Hi! Hi, everybody! Hi! Hey, come dance with me! Pick it up, snake back, and 2 hearts. Now do it again. Here we go. Pony, come with me. Oh yeah, we're gonna shake it up. Come on, Pony. You got it. We're gonna shake up those calories.
Troubling times. Troubling times. The basics of what I'm trying to tell you is we need a government to function. People knew it in ancient times. People know it today. That's why we still use it. That's why it's still mobile. And just as long as it's been in creation all the way back to the ancient Mesopotamians, well, of course, yes, again, people have been skeptical of it. They don't trust it, mainly those that are not in power. You see, for the longest time, big, high aristocratic elites dominating people. Don't trust these people, therefore, they're always skeptical about it. Later on, when we see the early formations of our country, oh, we're looking at a bunch of rich white guys. Who trusts a bunch of rich white guys? I know I don't. Very skeptical indeed. But we see this transition all the way in to what we now know as American history. What you need to realize is government's not these people that sit in this weird office that watch you and see everything that you do and make you paranoid and all that stuff that everybody automatically points out. Yes, you have agencies like the NSA that do screen your calls. They do ask for you to do certain things, but I mean, it's all in the safety and interest of the country. So first off, let's detail what is a government. Now, a government is an institution that carries out all the policies needed in order for public agendas, public policies to go through. What is a public policy? Well, it's all the things the government decides to do. Okay, so let's say the government decides, okay, no more gummy bears, especially the red ones. Well, all the agencies, well, first off, you would have all your Congress members vote on it, your president sign it in, the judiciary system going through and saying, oh, that's unconstitutional, we're just going to throw it out to begin with. But we go through all this policy, so especially with going on right now, you start seeing all the tensions with Ukraine, all the tensions with Russia. Well, a lot of these public policies are held out because of that. Okay? Now, the next thing that we need to really look at is, why should we have a government? Why do we need a government? Well, many of you might be thinking of the Purge. You might be thinking, oh, that'd be an amazing, amazing life. I could kill whoever I want if they got mad at me.
No! No! No!
Well, it's not as awesome as you think it would be. I mean, many of the ancient civilizations all the way back to Mesopotamia are looking at themselves saying, okay, we need somebody to tell us what to do. So what do? They establish a king. They establish a dominating figure who tells them what to do. You see this evolve through the ancient Babylonians. You see Hammurabi write his Hammurabi Code, which details all the things you could and couldn't do. You see the Egyptian pharaohs rise up. You see the kings of Jerusalem. You see the kings of the Jewish state. You see the Roman Empire. You see the Greeks. You see all the rise of the Turkish empires, and now you even see people like Napoleon Bonaparte and Adolf Hitler rise out through it. And these are all very different people, but they're doing the same thing. How are governments comprised? That's a very good question. You have three major branches of government. Remarkably, that's exactly what we call our forms of government here in America. You have the legislative, you have the executive, and you also have the judicial. The legislative are really the people who put together all these laws. Okay, in America, they're representatives from your own states, your own senators. They come together and they say, okay, my state needs this state needs this whole country needs this. And they come together, they look for what's best for the nation. Now, do they get it right all the time? Well, it's up to many public discussion, but for the most part, they do way better than I can. Feel safe in that. You have the executive branch. The executive branch is the president. He goes in and he enforces these laws. He goes out and he tells each state, okay, this is what we agreed on, this is what I signed into law. And then you have the judiciary branch. The judiciary branch is all the courts. They look at the law, they look at our Constitution, which was written by James Madison in correlation with all of the framers, all of the founding fathers right after we win our independence. And they look at it and they say, okay, this doesn't go against it, this does go against it. And if it goes against it, it gets thrown out. It's unconstitutional. You can thank Marbury versus Madison for judiciary review. Okay? Now, are all systems of government like ours? Of course not. And that leads us in to the next. Okay, so I already told you. Yes, we have a different form of government than most nations that you'll see with the day. You're looking at thousands of nations, well, hundreds of nations, coming together and all having different systems. And so we're breaking these into two kind of large categories, but they're really important to be blocked this way. So first, you have what's called a dictatorship. Now, everybody kind of cringes whenever they talk about this. They say, oh, he's talking about that Adolf Hitler guy who killed all those people. It was pure evil. And yes, he was a dictator, but there are other dictators that weren't necessarily the worst thing that their country needed. Now, a dictatorship, that means one person's in charge. You heard me. One person is in charge. I would hate to have to be that person, honestly. You have everybody on your whim, and some of them are great leaders. You see people such as Julius Caesar that rises up, who makes Rome exactly what it needs to be. But then you have other people, and that's what you got to really keep in mind whenever you're thinking about this. The second thing that we need to talk about is democracy. Now, the democracy aspect is not pure American. We weren't the first, and I think you know that. The first come from a direct style of democracy from the Greeks, where the city-states would come together. They would all vote on an idea. Now, the city-state would let all men vote, not necessarily you barbaric yet. Yes, the sad reality, yes. So, we start seeing Greece really take off. They use this democratic, everybody has a say in our government style, but it doesn't last very long. So, we started thinking as the framers, okay, what do? Okay, we don't need to have a direct democracy where everybody has a voice in every single thing. Instead, we opted for a republic style of government, which is a representative democracy. Okay? We, as people living in an area, elect those with similar views to ourselves to go tell the government exactly what we think. They vote for us and all that. Now, the next concept that we need to talk about is going to be a little bit odd. Why? Because you've learned one thing and now I'm going to kind of flip it on its head. The thing we're going to talk about is the state. So, you have many different states. These are governing bodies. Okay? Now, it's usually called a nation, usually called a country, but how do we have 50 states in our country and other countries don't? Well, that's because we kind of changed the idea. Okay? So, what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to the board. I'm going to draw a little diagram maybe to help you a little bit kind of understand where we're going with this. Alright guys, we're now to the big board. I hope you can see it. My handwriting is very terrible. But we're looking at the 4 characteristics of the state. The first characteristic we look at is population. How many people live in the country we're talking about. Now we're talking about China, we're talking about 1 billion people. 1 billion, not a million, 1 billion. That's a lot of people, that's a lot of mouths to feed. It's the largest in the world. Then we also look at places like Vatican City that has the smallest population, right around 500. That's how many people they have to feed. That's how many people they're responsible for. That's how many people make the laws. So we also see the territory. Number 2, territory. Who has the largest territory? Russia. Have you seen it? Have you looked at it? Of course you have. You've taken world geography or world history. So I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You watch the evening news. Everything's going crazy in the Russia-Ukraine area. The place is huge. Part of it's in Europe, part of it's in Asia. The most populated part where most of the people live, well, that's in Europe. But the large expanse goes all the way to bordering Alaska. That's why this is a big thing, people. Keep it in mind. Now, what is the smallest? Of course, it's the Vatican City. The Vatican City is very small. I visited it this summer. It is very small. You can walk around the entirety of it in less than 30 minutes. So, what makes this population difference acceptable? It's just different ways of looking at the different types of states. You also have your sovereignty. Who's in charge? Is it one person? Is it many people? Is it the people? Is it other people that don't even live in that area, such as colonial days? You also have to ask yourself that, and you also have the style of government. We have a representative democracy, a republic, where other countries might boast a dictatorship. They might boast a communistic dictatorship. So guys, we talked about a lot today. We talked about the basic forms of government, the forms of a state, and we really went into a lot of the basic principles that we need to get through before we can get through government this year. If you have any questions, don't worry, we will talk about this in class as well. But this is kind of an intro level into what we're going to be talking about. And especially to those who might have missed this class or might have transferred in late and might be like, what's going on? Well, you can always revisit these on my YouTube channel. Classroom webpage on YouTube. Go in there, watch this, come to class ready for discussion. That's what these are for. This is Coach Thomason signing off. Have a good night.
I said, oh Lord Jesus, it's a fire. Then I ran out. I didn't grab no shoes or nothing, Jesus. I ran for my life. And then the smoke got me. I got bronchitis. Ain't nobody got time for that.